All right, so this is better. Better lighting and all. All right.
You look stunning.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, let me do this. Right fast. I guess it's a good thing that I pay attention, huh? Pay attention when we're doing these recordings. So now I know what everything. Well, welcome, Magda.
Well,
Welcome.
thank you. Thank you for having me.
Happy Thursday, BTG crew, and welcome to another exciting episode of Ask Nine Rivers and the Gap podcast. Well, this week is going to be just a little different. No, we are not live. You see, we've been in talks about expanding our show with more episodes and recorded interviews. And thanks to some, well, let's just say fantastic events that happened this week, that we are able to try it out before the new year. So if you guys will just sit back and relax and enjoy this amazing conversation between myself and the beautiful Magda, you won't want to miss it. And in the comments below, after you watch the entire episode, let us know, is this something that you would love to see pre-recorded interviews like this, all right? Again, have an amazing weekend, and I'll see you all next week.
And that's the disappointing when you fuck a guy for over an hour and he just go.
Did anybody recognize you from film in the industry? They did? Okay. Well, I just came in. You gotta do what you gotta do. You are such an advocate. One thing is what I love is I love seeing a lot of the beautiful women that's in the industry as sex advocates.
And I would set up crystals on their body based off of their chakra. And the crystals, what they do is if they sit long enough, they begin to like permeate through the body. They begin to expand through the body and they create a bridge.
I shot with John Q too. You know, John Q, you know, I was the first big girl, but he did his thing, you know, his thing. Yeah. But
I would, and I have given my last dime to people. I've given when I should have just watched. And it's not always about giving financially. It's giving your space and your time and your energy.
So that's kind of like a 50-50 answer, what I got. That wasn't really a yes or no answer.
I think I actually would, and this is of course the therapist in me, I would be asking them, like, tell me how this is celibacy for you.
So what's first here, Anna?
I shoot them just like I would be shooting a regular human. So you don't put the emphasis on that, so it makes it more consistent with the title of being transgender
I have a
woman.
good friend. She lives here in Atlanta. I met her on a porn set. She wrote a book called From Porn to the Pulpit. Now, I won't say she was like this super... Yeah, she's my best friend. She's my best friend. Her name is Danielle Williams McCord. She wrote an amazing book called From Porn to the Pulpit. She's been preaching for 10 years now, but I met her on a porn set.
In any business that you find yourself in. Because definitely for me, like, you know, creating a product to push to the consumer, and for me, everything was consumer driven. If they didn't want it, I'm not gonna make it because I knew it.
Felt like if we kept our head a little below the sagebrush, that we would just be able to keep on going without any interference or anything like that. But that's
like, dude, I'm sitting in like the dressing room, like just with all the 20-year-olds and 22-year-olds, 25-year-olds. I'm like, how old are you? Oh, I'm 25. I'm like, how old are you? I'm 23. And I'm like, dude, I'm 30.
Before I leave the house, I feel like the last look. You know, this is how I feel, this is what I'm thinking, you know. Now, when I get out and interact with other people, it's going to be what it is.
Right, okay.
Welcome to a podcast like no other. Get ready for insightful conversations, diverse perspectives, and a touch of inspiration. This is Ask Nyomi, Bridging the Gap podcast. Join your host, the dynamic Nyomi Banks, as she delves into the heart of various topics with a refreshing blend of curiosity and wisdom. Each week, tune in as Nyomi is joined by special guests who bring their unique stories and expertise to the table. It's a journey of discovery, learning, and growth. And let's not forget about the one and only dog pound Mike, adding his flavor and flair to the mix. Together, they make a dynamic duo you won't want to miss. From thought-provoking discussions to moments of laughter and joy, Ask Nyomi. Bridging the Gap podcast offers a space where great topics meet amazing guests. So, mark your calendars, set your reminders, and prepare to be entertained and enlightened. Join Nyomi Banks and Dog Pound Mike weekly for an unforgettable podcast experience. Get ready to bridge the gap, expand your horizons, and immerse yourself in the world of Ask Nyomi. Subscribe now and stay tuned for a podcast journey like no other.
All right, welcome to another episode of Ask Nyomi Bridging the Gap. I'm your host, Nyomi, and today we have a very special guest, Magda Kaye, a transformative speaker, an intimacy expert, and an author of No More Faking It. Magda has a wealth of experience in exploring in intersections of Tantra, psychology, and authentic intimacy. Welcome, Magda. How are you?
Oh, I'm excited. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes. Look, BTG crew, she is coming to us all the way from Poland.
Yes, I am.
Yes, Poland. All right, Miss Magda. So let's start here. Let's start with your personal journey. Can you share how your upbringing in the Soviet bloc Poland shaped your perspective on intimacy and relationships?
Yes. Well, I do come from a country that is traditional. There's nothing wrong with that, by the way, but let's just say we're not maybe a country that so openly talks about sexuality and intimate needs. We have this incredible kind of pressure almost that you should be self-sacrificing, and it's like expected of people. Sacrifice yourself for the country. Women should sacrifice themselves for kids and family, like to the point that if you're not doing this, then you're not like a good mother. So there'll be a lot of that. There's I guess every nationality, every country has some dynamics and tendencies that don't necessarily support us in later creating healthy relationships. But my family specifically actually has always been very open-minded. So I feel like I wasn't as deeply impacted by the collective mentality, especially as a child. It's kind of funny enough. I feel more of it now as an adult being on my own. Like I feel like it gets to me a bit more. However, even though my family was always open-minded, we did have our share of struggles. So there, like emotionally, it was difficult. I was raised with my grandma, and basically I had shouting and arguments in my house every single day. And it was either my mom arguing with my dad or my mom arguing with her mom. And since I was a little girl, I felt like I had to take sides. And so I developed an anxious attachment style. I am like overly sensitive to people. If I can sense right away that someone is not fully happy or satisfied, like it causes me anxiety because of that conditioning. And so, having also watched my parents, my grandparents, their relationships, which unfortunately they're far from being happy and loving, I didn't want to be in love. I didn't want to be in a relationship. And so, believe it or not, my first relationship was when I was 27. So it's like I waited as long as I could. And yeah, I mean, the thing is, we all have the needs for intimacy and connection. And I try to meet those needs through partying and drinking. And anyone who's ever gone through like an intense partying phase, that it's a very superficial thing. Like it's fun, but it doesn't meet those deep needs for love and intimacy. And so, yes, it didn't really help me that much. So that relationship was beautiful. It, in a way, it opened me, to love. It opened me to look at myself and face certain things, especially that specific relationship, meaning my first love, ended because I wasn't having orgasm. And so, for any woman who's ever struggled with this, we are usually really embarrassed about it. We fake it. And so, on top of that, feeling like something must be wrong with me, like losing your first love because of that, it just felt like a lot, but this
Yeah.
is what eventually like pushed me to move into a tantric community and learn about sexual healing, learn about intimacy, and today do this as my work.
So let me ask you this, because you say took you 27 years to be into your first relationship. Now, beforehand, did you have sex beforehand? Like, were you the naughty one beforehand?
Well, let me say, no, I was not a virgin when I got together with him. I
Okay.
did have sex before, but it was more, it was never a hookup. I am not a hookup girl. Like until today, it's just not my thing. I know there are women who are perfectly okay with casual sex. That was never me. What was really happening is, I would know some people through going out, and like I like them, let's say, and then, usually when you're out and drinking, but there's a reason why we, call alcohol liquid courage. So it did feel like, okay, now I'm more courageous, I can flirt, and that's how I would connect with people. And it's not that I necessarily wanted to just sleep with someone and leave it there. It's just that I didn't know better. I didn't have the tools, and I was just terrified to show myself fully. To be honest, I was really scared that I am like my mom, and I was so terrified that someone would see it. So I just stayed away from ever showing myself to someone.
Right.
Yes, I did have sex before, but like I said, even though in a way, like if you were to really do it like black and white, it looks like casual sex, but that was never the intention. It's just I didn't know how to.
You didn't know how to. Okay. So they were actually friends of yours that you actually went out with, well, went partying with. They were friends. So we would call those
Yes.
homie lover friends. Homie.
Yes, exactly. Like I have never just just went out and picked someone like this. Like that for me, that is a proper hookup, and
Right.
I have never done it, and I don't think I ever could. It's just like I feel very uncomfortable if I don't know you. So everyone I've ever slept with, I knew them. We had some sort of a relationship before.
Okay,
Yes.
homie lover friends. Okay, homie lover.
Exactly. I'm learning new terms here.
But I'm a little more old school. So even with the BTG say like, Naomi, now that's old, but that's what we called it. When we were have friends that we will hook up with because we were more familiar with them. You know what I'm saying? Rather than going out and finding a stranger, which is the one that was next to us. Now, no, I don't do no homie level hookups, no. But I know that that's had been the case on some folks.
Yes. So here you have an example. I mean, because again, I wanted a deeper relationship. I
Mhm.
wanted to, be with someone I knew, and I liked all of them. Okay, maybe let's also make this clear. I actually did like every single person I've ever been with. It was never, oh, just for sex.
Right.
I like those guys. And again, when we were young, we so often uh like have sex too fast because we think that that's kind of what
What
you're
you're
meant
supposed
to
to do
do.
when you get grown, yeah, or be a
Exactly. So again, I didn't know better. I didn't know better, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people would have similar
yeah.
stories, unfortunately.
So let me ask you this: before you got into your relationship at 27 years old, and even though you were having sex during that time beforehand, have you ever experienced an orgasm with those other homie lover hookups?
No, and to be honest, at this time, I was still pretty clueless as to what sex really is.
Okay.
And I do have to be honest that maybe even all of the times that I was with someone, I was under influence of even a little bit of alcohol, at least
Mm.
one drink. I was reflecting on it at some point in my life, was just like, wow, how crazy is it? And like I spoke to people saying, no, I'm not the only one, because we're so scared of intimacy. So we need this liquid courage or something else to kind of make us reveal ourselves. And it's just kind of sad when I think of it now. Because also, like, if you are under influence of anything, you're not really fully yourself. Like, you're not actually vulnerable. You're not intimate because you're not fully present in your body. So quite honestly, like, a lot of these experiences would be a little blurry. Like, I wouldn't be fully present. And again, I had like zero understanding of what intimacy really is. I didn't know much what to do. I was still kind of learning, because it's not like I had tons of these experiences,
Right.
And I definitely had no idea what an orgasm is or should be. And to be fair, it's only when I got into a tantric community and I kind of actually redefine this. So I don't look at an orgasm the way like our society does. Only then I was like, okay, now I understand what it is. And I don't even talk about like an orgasm. There is no thing. It's a state. I call these orgasmic states or orgasmic waves. So again, like, without even this proper understanding of what human sexuality is, when I look at myself in those times, I was like, there's no way I could have ever had an orgasm, just because like I had like no understanding of what it means to feel, to express yourself, to relax, to breathe. Like, there was zero awareness of that.
Speaking of, you're talking about in a state that you have, and it's more of a mindset. So for you, how did you transition over to thinking of a mindset and taking a holistic approach to it?
It's honestly when I moved to a tantric community, which, by the way, I kind of joke about this now, because from the perspective of time, well, let's just call it what it was. It was a sex cult. It was a tantric community, but it was like hugely focused on sexual practices, and we were encouraged to do a lot of things. So when I moved into this community, we were doing so many practices with energy, and it's something I had done before, but not to the same extent. So we would have different practices like meditation, yoga, breath practices, like a lot of very, very deep Kundalini, yogic, tantric practices every day. And when you do this, you actually start perceiving energy, which is pretty crazy, because it kind of feels like you're developing some superpowers. And so I started feeling my sexual energy actually move through my body. And so I realized that depending on different things that I do, and sex being one of those, but not only, like I would go higher or deeper, like my states would change. And I became more aware of this. I could get myself high just through a tantric practice that didn't have to be sexual at all. So if you think of like whoever, if you take anything, right, and you can get kind of crazy and have your trip, like you can get yourself there just through energy practices. So it was simply by experiencing it in my body that I started understanding it. So it's one of those things that when we just talk about this, like, theoretically, I understand for some people this may feel very foreign. It's a bit like being in love, right? It's like it's only when you fall in love that you really understand what it's about. And it's a little bit like these kind of energy states and what energy is. But the cool thing is that it is available to anyone. If anyone wants to practice this, we can. But again, yes, it was through an actual experience of that.
Okay. Now you spoke, when you were speaking, you talked about, and this is such a trigger word, cult. Cult is such a trigger word when you speak it and you say it. So I want to go back to that. I want to go back to asking you what makes it a cult. And in entering it, is there, do they do like a psych, evaluation before you come into an environment like that?
So I do want to say that I think, like you said, the word cult is very triggering. But if we think about it, what a cult really is a very strong tribe, right? Like in a way, all tribes have this kind of cult-like dynamics. And so, like, sport teams, all the fans, like Taylor Swift's fans, it's a cult. So I also want to be mindful. It doesn't mean that it was a bad experience for me. it was a good experience. There were some bad elements into this, but all in all, I am very grateful that I got to experience that. So what was specifically happening there is we had a guru, we had the founder of the whole community and the school, and in a way, everyone just followed what he said. So, when if you think of cults, you have this one leader and everyone does what they say. So there's definitely the power is in the hands of one person. And people wouldn't necessarily challenge or question him, as in you go there and you trust him, that this is the path. And again, it's even in yoga, we've had this with Yogi Bhajan. There are a few other cases. I think Bikram, we have these kind of similar stories when you have this one person who seems to have the knowledge, have the tools, and so you just trust him because he did, regardless of everything, he did. And then that community was polyamorous, so basically it was considered that it's a more conscious way of relating if you have multiple partners. And anyone who was in a monogamous or closed relationship, in a way there was kind of judgment towards them, because you'd be like, oh, they're just not conscious enough to open the relationship. So there's this kind of subtle manipulation of that. And you were definitely encouraged to have a lot of sex and have multiple partners. And again, there is a reason for that. It's part of a tantric path, that specific tantric path. That's kind of the thing that you do. But there is definitely a lot of not necessarily direct, but indirect pressure that you should. And I also heard, for example, from this main teacher that, that me not wanting to be with more people is my karmic blockage. And then if I don't push through it, nothing will change. And all I'm thinking is I agree with you, but I still don't think that this is the answer. Because if I don't feel like sleeping with more people, I don't think that forcing myself to do it is the answer. So there's definitely very little awareness of the whole idea of re-traumatization, safety, which is essential for women. The school was run by a man, so then you're kind of lacking this perspective that is really important for women. And essentially that community, that school got shut down, and then it reopened, but it's just tiny fracture of what it used to be, and it shut down because of accusations of rape and abuse. So it was definitely it wasn't all good. There's definitely things going on there that should have not been happening.
So, okay. So as you're talking, something came up into my mind, and you just spoke about it, about the rape and about, all of that, the negative part of it, the negative part of it. I guess for you, are you now in a new Tantra community now, or are you just on your own?
No, I left the community, and so we call these conscious communities or tantric communities. They're a little bit different, and there's a few places around the world where these people live. And I spent, I don't know how many years, I think altogether 6 or 7 years together living in these different communities. And I just slowly started kind of drifting away because I didn't resonate with them anymore. So it wasn't because of the accusations. I already kind of stepped out of the school specifically before, because I just started feeling yeah, I feel like I got what I needed to get from it. Very grateful for that. But doesn't really feel like that's what I want to do. One of the things was exactly, I don't really want to be sleeping with multiple people. It doesn't feel right. And I don't fully agree with some of the things. It's well, I'm good, and I was stepping away from this already. And then, these communities, they're quite specific in how they operate. They're beautiful, by the way. There's so much intimacy and connection, and it's very healing for the body and the heart to be in a community like this. But in a way, what I also see is that there's a difference between being there for a year or two and being there for a decade. And I simply got what I needed, but I felt like people are hiding from the world. People usually don't really make money. They don't work as much. They don't pay taxes. There's all of these kind of things of being part of the matrix, which we kind of call, that they don't want to be a part of. But in a way, if you look at it, most of them are hiding. And I was missing I was missing my drive. I was, the girl that I used to be, extremely
Right.
audacious and just going for things. I missed that about myself. And so I knew that I wanted to kind of step out of those communities. And I don't know, like now I'm back in Europe. So I totally left those communities because it was in Asia where I stayed.
Right.
Yeah, so now I'm in
Interesting.
Europe because I want to be around like business people and game changers and people with big goals. Like it feels, it feels a little bit like when I was in my like late 20s, my first like half of my 30s, when people usually like hustle and make things happen. I was living on a tropical island. I was spending 4 hours chatting to a friend over coffee, doing ecstatic dance in the evening, going to the beach, And I was just like, that's great lifestyle, but it's a bit like, you're meant to do it once you retire. And I was like, I haven't hustled enough. So I was like, I want to be back more in the Western world and I want to hustle a little more.
I want to go back to the Tantra community. Because there's a question right here, and I want to make sure that I don't forget the question, because there's something that you said early on about energy. And you also spoke about from the one school that you were originally, the first one that you were at, and that it was looked for you to have multiple sexual partners. Knowing I'm a very energetic and very spiritual person, and I understand that even swapping with different people, especially if they are not going through the healing process, you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's why I asked about the psyche. That's about the psyche coming in when you go to transfer different energy. Even as we speak right now, we're from energy right here, energy right here. So for them to I'm hoping that they were wanting to be safe and healthy, even on that aspect, because when you do that, you are getting the toxic and the negativity and the impurity of another person's spirit. You know what I'm saying? And who they also slept with, you know. So that's what I guess that's where my thing, because I'm not judging at all. I know I'm the last one to judge about any of that. But within the community, were there any programs that will help for that to, like, okay, before you go have sex with this person or do sex with this person, you have to go through a 6 week or 3 month or whatever it is, where you go into where you go into the part where you're healing and you cleansing yourself, so you can be able to enjoy and be out there with these people, having these truly intimate relationships, and not making those connections toxic. Does that make sense?
Yes. So this school was first of all, a yoga school. And so when you would join this community, you would go through a very intense month-long program with about 8 hours of practice every day. And in fact, it's kind of funny because like I heard about all the sexual things in that community, and then I arrived there. And like first month, there's nothing. And I'm like, where's all the sex? I heard all these stories, these scary, crazy stories. And I'm like, all we do every day is meditation, hatha yoga, pranayama, and lectures, right? And later they were told, like I was told, that basically the sexual practices, like the community knows not to involve newbies into these practices, because first of all, it is controversial, and they were mindful that, look, not everyone should be exposed to this. And so they wanted to make sure first that you actually want to stay in a community, and then you would be going deeper. And secondly is also this, like you did want to work on your energy body and open your body and make sure there's like some level of like energy detoxification, so these practices were very, very intense, and that's kind of the thing. In this community, we were doing very intense energy practices, so there's a lot of purification happening. Back to what you said about the exchange of energy. So yes, and in a way, this is exactly why we were recommended to be with multiple partners. Because, for example, one of the things, and this is what I still use at my work, is looking at the 4 types of energy from nature. So earth, fire, water, and air. And so depending on like how you are made, let's just say, you are going to have different resonance with these energies. So I am earth, which means I'm extremely practical, down to earth, like very pragmatic. And there may be someone else who's airy and they have a tendency of being quite spaced out. So, for example, it would be at this point recommended, let's say, for an airy person to connect with someone who's earthy, because I can help ground them. And same for me, if I want to open myself more to fluidity in life and emotions, I can be with someone who's watery. So we would actually like be recommended, oh, this person would be good, their energy would be good for you, and so on. So that was taken into consideration. But of course, it's not like it, well, not of course. It's not like you had to pass any specific tests to be later invited to these events. Like the community was just like, we lived there, you know, it's like people just did their thing. It's not like you needed permission to go on a date with someone. So it was more of like, we were in that community for, like, it was our choice. We wanted to be there. We wanted to study this, right? We wanted to do these practices. So maybe there is a few people who like were not really into the actual energy practices and yoga, but like 90% of us were doing really, really intense practices every day.
My mind is going right now, but I'm gonna leave it there. But I like what you said. Yeah, you know, because I guess I am very sexual positive, very sexual positive, and so I want to, especially when it comes to our listeners and viewers, I want to make sure that we get both sides of it all. You understand what I'm saying? It's because I want the world to understand about being sexual and spirituality, that they can both truly be in tune with one another, especially if they're used responsibly and used responsibly, you know, and respectfully to that other person. I guess, and this is just, and I know this is probably a lot of questions that will be asked later on, is that, do you believe, and I just want to be honest, do you believe this could be a gateway to pedophilia?
So I think when it comes to sex, it's extremely tricky. Because what I see, for example, and this is mostly with women, and I think it lands different for women and men because we have different conditioning.
Right.
But I would see women who they're like, oh, I'm sexually empowered and liberated. And what I actually see is that you don't respect your sexuality. You're just too easy with it. Not that it's not okay to sleep with people. It's just that you give it away without actually asking yourself what it should. If you truly consider something to be precious, then you don't just give it to everyone. So I think it's really tricky because someone who is truly sexually open and healed and liberated can look very similar to someone who is very wounded, but they're compensating with being overly sexual. So I think there's a lot of gray. There's a lot of gray here. And I think this is what my personal view is, that these type of communities, if it's really focused on sex, it shouldn't be run by a man. So, for example, in Tantra, some of the things that we talk about is that the energy flows differently for a male and a female body. And you can also look like physiologically, biologically, how we're built. So sex per se, penetration, is very vulnerable for women. It's not for men. And something I tell men is that if you want to understand how vulnerable it is for a woman to have sex, get like anal or any form of like prostate massage, because being penetrated is extremely, extremely vulnerable. And so I do absolutely feel that we have to be super mindful, because it's so easy to just go into any sexual experiences and be like, oh, it's not a big deal, it's all fun. Well, your body may not agree. Your nervous system may not agree. So I distinguish between sexual empowerment and sexual liberation. Being sexually liberated is about being able to say yes to things. Being sexually empowered is about being able to say yes and no. So just because someone says yes to sexual experiences doesn't actually mean that they have healthy sexuality. So I'm fully with you on this one. There is a lot of space. Like it opens the door for a lot of forms of abuse. It absolutely does.
Yeah. Okay. So now let's go to your book. Let's talk about No More Faking It. Why? Why create it? Why can't we continue to fake it? No, I'm just kidding.
Well,
I'm just kidding.
no, but I have to tell you
Continue to write the
something.
book.
I have to tell you something because it's a bit of a tricky title.
Okay.
Because it's not really about faking orgasm.
But
see,
shame on me.
Exactly. But this is exactly why I was like, speaking with my like editor / publisher, I was like, you know what? Should we do this? Should we do this and name it like that? And the thing is that it's, first of all, the book is mostly for women. I do have men get the book too and read it, which I'm like, it's amazing. Thank you guys for doing this. But what the book actually is more about the fact that as women, we just have a tendency of faking things, meaning everything is fine. Yes, it's all good. We have the perfect smile, the perfect dress, perfect hair. Everything is fine. And we just keep things inside. And women are masters of enduring, right? Something doesn't feel good. I don't have to say anything. It's fine. I'm just going to endure it, right? In so many areas of our life. And so no more faking it is just really about what is your truth in this moment, right? Like, are you saying yes? Are you saying no? Why are you saying this? And that, of course, translates also to the bedroom, right? Like, not just are you faking an orgasm, but are you faking that you like this position? Are you faking that you want to have sex? Are you faking that you have a headache and that you don't want to have sex? It's more about being really true to yourself. And specifically what the book is about, it's the system that I developed, like just through my life experience of working with your 4 power centers, which is a tool that I use myself until today. And it's about really knowing yourself, what it is that you need in any specific moment, and then be able to ask for it so that you never, ever have to say yes when you actually mean no. And so you never have to say no when you actually mean yes.
And what is that again? So my listeners can hear, because it kind of,
Yes.
Can you say that again, what that is?
So can you repeat from which moment?
From the beginning, when you were talking about, you gave a specific what this tantra was, what this tool that you were doing is.
Okay. Yes. So the tool, it's 4 power centers. Basically, 4 power centers. So we have these like centers in our body, and they all hold wisdom. It's like they have access to an important part of you. And so the method is about connecting and communicating with these power centers so that you can really know yourself, so that you can truly understand what you need, right? So you don't have to fake things in life. You can be truly, truly honest with yourself in perfect alignment. So if you think, I'm pretty sure you have this, and we all do this, like how often do we say yes to something and you're just like, yeah, okay, fine, I'll do it, right? But you're not really there. And how often do you want to do something, but it's like, oh, fine, yeah, it's okay if we don't. So we just kind of give in because someone else wants something else, or because we're too scared to ask for something. And by working with these power centers, we actually get to get real clarity on what is our truth in the moment, which then gives us more, like it empowers us and gives us more confidence to actually ask for it and follow through.
So within these 4 centers, is these 4 centers all about the chakras?
No, so it actually doesn't really overlap the chakras. So I'll tell you like in the order of how I discovered them. So I come from the corporate world, right? Long hours in the office. See, my generation was this generation that like when we were in uni, everyone wanted to work for like this big corporation. The bigger, the better. As in like the less important you are in this company, the better. And so I did this too. I worked hard, long hours, and like had all those goals and objectives. And this really ended in like what I call a quarter life crisis. So at 25, I actually quit my job, and I'm just like, I don't know what I want to do. And I speak about this in the book because I also had a very serious health scare at that time. And so I realized that I had been pushing for so many years in my life, and I'm now paying the price. At 25, I'm deeply unhappy with my life. My health is really bad. Something is off. And so this is when I learn about the first power center, which is your head. And the head is the logical center of us, right? It's all about things need to make sense in your life. This is what we're doing first, then this, then this, then that, all, planning, having those big goals and making sure we follow through. Then the second center is, and this, is my first relationship. It's when I gave voice for the first time to your heart. So that's the second center. And the heart wants love and connection. Then when I moved into the Tantric community, I discovered the power of the third center, which is our sex center. So in the book specifically, I talk about pussy. And I use the word consciously because I feel that for us being unable to say it, it's part of us being disconnected from our sexual power.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
But it's basically sex center for both men and women. And so what this power center is about, it wants pleasure, but it wants all pleasure, not just sexual. And it wants fun, just like kind of like a kid. I want everything now and I just want to have fun. And then lastly, the fourth center is our gut, and our gut wants our safety and security. And so in a way, you can see that each of these centers, it represents a very important part of our life. We all have these areas in life and they're, important for all of us. But the point is that what we don't do is that we don't work with all of them together. And instead, at any given time of life, we allow each of these centers to kind of take over and boss the other ones around.
Yeah.
So, right? So we have the phases when it's all about love. And let's say, when you fall in love, right? The honeymoon effect. And then you forget about my friends, forget about my work. Who cares? We can just spend like days, doing nothing. And it's so amazing. So like the heart sabotages everything else. We have, of course, examples when maybe the gut will take over and you just get really scared. And instead of trying new things, you're just looking for safety, right? So you don't give love another chance, or you don't apply for this position that you maybe would really love to get because you're too scared of getting rejected. And so now we live from that place. So in most cases, we do center switching, right? So one center takes over. And in the book, I have a quiz to help you identify which center currently is running the show. And then the important part is, and there are practices inside of the book as well, and you can get guided meditations together with it. The whole point is about connecting to all of the four centers and speaking to all of them. It's a bit like, imagine you have your board of directors, right? And you have a meeting with them and you're asking for feedback from each of them. And then you make a decision that takes each of them into consideration. And in most cases, the way we move through life is that we only listen to one of the centers, which means that if, for example, if my heart wants now to spend the whole day with this guy because I'm so in love with him, but let's say my head wants to do the work that I have to do, right? If I ignore what my head wants and I just spend the whole day with this guy, I am essentially doing something against myself.
Yeah.
Right? And I call these like self-abuse because I'm literally ignoring my need. I'm allowing one of my needs to totally gaslight other parts of me. And when we do this, and most of us live like this, when we do that, what we don't realize is that our self-esteem really suffers. Because essentially, anytime you do it, you tell yourself, I don't care what you need. I don't care that there is your boundary. I don't care that you want this. Like, I'm going to do something else. So we keep telling ourselves that what I need doesn't actually matter. And that's extremely dangerous.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. I got a question for you. Because you talked about women before, about it being more. So let me just say this. You've helped a lot of people overcome their barriers, right? What have been the biggest obstacle for both men and women separately? Let me know, for the women and for the men.
So I'll be honest, it's not like there's one that's like, this is main for women, this is the main one for men. But I'll tell you some of them that I have seen with my clients that we've been moving through. With men, there is a really kind of feeling of being lost and not knowing what it means to be a man. And there's many reasons for this. In the past, we had rites of passage, And it was a challenge for a boy that he had to pass to become a man. We do not have those rituals of initiation anymore. And a man is made, right? And you become a man through challenges, through overcoming challenges. And our society is full of emotional and mental challenges, but we don't have physical challenges. And actually for men, this is not good. It's also not good for their hormones. Like literally it causes imbalances in testosterone, which is the main male hormone. So men are really kind of lost about what it means to be a man. And then they hear, there's this old idea of what it means to be an alpha man, like this kind of masculine man. And then these days we hear about a conscious man, emotional man. And so these are like opposites, and there's a lot of confusion. Plus add the fact that these days women are so easy to reject a man with a lot of cruelty. Let's just be honest. We can be really mean. We're very strong and easily intimidating. Men feel lost. Men feel lost. They don't approach women as often because they're simply scared. They don't know how to do it. So that is, I see this a lot. Men are just like kind of paralyzed because they don't really know what their place is in modern society. So that's something I've seen with men. And it would have different like expressions, a man who would like allow himself to be mistreated in relationships because he's scared to set boundaries because he doesn't want to come off as an animal or abusive. Men who don't get their sexual needs met because again they don't want to be called like an asshole or that you only want sex from me, so they don't ask, they don't discuss this. So it can later show up in different ways in life. So that's from men. With women, I feel like we lost our ability to be vulnerable. So I don't like talking about women being too masculine, etc. I think it's a simplification of that conversation, because I love being in my masculine. I think we need both masculine and feminine. I also don't think that feminine means about being surrendered and being soft and gentle. I think it's more complex than that. It's just we're taking very complex concepts and then we make them like buzzwords and kind of mass ideas. And so we simplify them, but by simplifying them, we're losing the very essence of what it is. So I think most people who talk about polarity, masculine, feminine, don't actually know what it is. They have simplified it. So I'm trying to be mindful and not kind of use this. But I think what women are facing is that we have to take care of ourselves. I'm single right now, so I literally have to take care of everything, right? Like everything is on my shoulders. So I cannot just be like soft and feminine every day because I have things to do. It's the reality of our times. And then the fact that the structure of relationship has changed. And again, men, are feeling a bit lost about what their place is. So we have more and more women just like, I'm fine on my own. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I feel like women, we have lost a lot of this softness and vulnerability where I can just open and be like, I'd love your help. I don't know how to do it. Or like, I'm really tired. Would you just help me with this? Instead of like, yeah, I'm just going to do everything myself, which I can. But I am kind of missing the softness with women. And also a lot of it is simply because women don't feel safe, and we haven't actually been safe, like objectively speaking, for many, many centuries.
Yeah.
And fine, like in the past, we couldn't say anything, now we can. And so there's still anger, like collective anger in women to be like, do not treat me like this. You do not get to treat me like this. And it's really difficult because usually when we are angry, we're actually sad. Or just anger covers up the sadness. And usually it goes the other way around. If I am sad, it's usually I cannot access my anger. There seems to be a funny correlation between these two emotions. But the anger that you see in women, it's really sadness. It's really sadness that I have been hurt, that I trusted you and you betrayed me, that you hurt me or that you abused me. There's a lot of pain. But instead, we kind of put the walls up and we become very hard and strong and angry instead of being sad. Because Sadness requires softness. But again, this is vulnerable. So I see that with women, and I'm also talking about myself, you know, I am part of that too. There is that fear of just softening, because then I can get hurt again. And again, this can show up in many different ways. Struggling to find anyone, like to find a partner, struggling to have an orgasm, hormonal problems, like, you know, because again, when we don't soften, we have too much cortisol, too much testosterone that has all the changes in our body, like dysregulated cycle, like not being able to lose some weight, like holding on to extra weight, not sleeping very well, losing hair, all of that. So we have a lot of these issues that women are dealing with, and but for me, like, it all comes down to this idea that we're not in our sadness, we're in our anger.
So let me ask you this: saying all of that, especially for women, knowing that they've been betrayed from someone, could it be also that they feel that they self-betrayed themselves, and so they feel like they're not worthy of all of those things? They're not worthy of intimacy. They're not worthy of having a relationship. I'm not worthy, you know, I'm not worthy of having an orgasm and feeling that intimacy.
I do believe that a lot of us have this. Like, that, you know, people say that, like, you have to believe that you deserve something to receive that. And with that, you know, like you said, it's about, like, also betraying myself. And literally, like, if I can just go back quickly to the book, this is literally what it's about. So if I, like, for example, for me, one of, like, a big wound for me after one of, like, a rather toxic relationship was I stopped trusting myself, because I didn't walk away when I should have walked away. I stayed too long. And so, yes, I can be mad at him for doing whatever he did, but I was really mad at myself that I allowed that, right? I didn't stand up for myself. And for example, for me, and it's something I still have in my body, I'm still working through, like, those deeper layers of that. But it's, do I trust myself that if someone mistreats me, I will be able to walk away? And if I don't trust myself that I can do it, then I'm going to stay away from relationships, right? Because this way I don't have to worry about this. So I like, this is another way that I see this dynamic play out. Yeah, but absolutely, like, I feel so much of it comes down to the relationship with self. And, you know, again, like, going back to my childhood, because of these dynamics and the fact that I felt like I had to step in and always, like, solve the conflict, I didn't develop boundaries. Like, I was not presented the concept of boundaries. My mom kept self-sacrificing, and then she would be bitter and angry at everyone else for doing that. But it was presented to me as a virtue, you know. And so I had to learn it, and I'm still learning this. Like, it's a, you know, it's a learning for the whole lifetime. But I find this really essential, because safety is subjective, right? Safety is subjective. You can have two people in the exact same situation. One person will feel safe, another one will not. And that safety is based on actual facts, the situation, but it's also about how I perceive it. Do I perceive that I can take care of myself in this situation or not? And I feel a lot of women don't trust themselves. They don't feel safe because they don't have the tools to speak up, to walk away, to stand up for themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I get it. I get it. I think it's an amazing thing that you're doing, even with writing this book. My prayer and hope is that even with you writing the book, that you go back into that book and you reach out. You know, it's something that you said about your mom. And you said something about your mom when she would get angry at other people because she didn't. That anger was her. She was angry at herself. So even as women or as men, when we go through relationships or we go through things and we say, well, we don't trust ourselves, you know, we can't go further, or we can't do this, or we can't do that. How about look at it in a different perspective? Hear me out. When you going through those trials or you going through that situation, what did you learn from that situation? You understand? So you knew to get out of the situation. Once you knew when you couldn't handle it anymore, you got out. That's a win. That's a win. That's a win. 2, you know what it feels like when something doesn't feel right. You understand? You know when something doesn't feel right, you know. So at that moment of time, say no. Say no. I like when you say about the 4, that 4 energy. Why can't we use that for that as well as being able to relate to others, versus just relating to ourselves, but relating to others as well, you know? Because we could go on and we come to a time to start right now. And we can really be talking in this, for this show. And I'm trying to find a way where we can just kind of cut it off. And I would love to have you back on another time. I really would. And I just hate that we couldn't do it live. I know our time is so different. Because I know the listeners will have a lot of questions, especially about the Tantric community, about your book, even about, do you yourself, do you do any coaching or do you do anything like that, that if anybody wanted to really know and get deep into it, that they can reach out to you and they can speak to you personally, and have that conversation or even help them overcome those barriers?
Yes, I do coaching, one-on-one coaching, which includes various also tantric practices. And these days I do this mostly online. So of course there's some things we can only do in person, but this is why I also give people home practices. But I do online coaching. So feel free to reach out if anyone would be interested. And yes, I feel like, you know what, one day I have to just visit your part of the world. Let's see when this happens, but it would be incredible. Yes, and hopefully then we could do live.
Yes. All right, so tell them where they can find you at, your social media page, your website, wherever, and actually where can they pick up the book?
Sure. So I am Magda Kaye. It's MAGDA-KAY. And if you just put it in Google, like what you're going to find is all of my stuff. So my website is magdakaye.com. And over there, you're going to find everything. If you would like to work together, you can get all the details there. You can book a free consultation. Because like when I work with someone one-on-one, I always first want to just have a chat, understand what's happening for you, if I can actually help you and see how we can do this. You also find information about all our online courses and the book. Instagram is Magda Kaye Official, and there's also YouTube Magda Kaye. So all of these would be amazing to see you guys there. And the book is called No More Faking It. So it's available on Amazon. We have also the audiobook and the physical book as well. And then the digital is available through practically any online like bookstore retailers. So for those of you who don't like Amazon, who prefer other websites, we're pretty much available everywhere.
Thank you, Magda. As I'm talking, my voice is going out. Thank you for sharing your amazing story, and just giving us some strategies and some tools to help us through this. All right. But thank you, Magda Kaye.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it.
You're welcome. All right.
Hey, it's the goddess Nyomi&x, and I hope you enjoyed that last episode of Ask Naomi Bridging the Gap. And if you did, please like, subscribe, press that notification button, as well as comment. I'll see you next week. Keep it sexy.
Ask Naomi Bridging the Gap. This is where we talk about love, sex, relationships, cultural differences, and so much more.